So bone scanning was an inspiring method for all of us, but afterwards, thanks to Professor Luc again, we had a case, and he again considered whether we can have a new method for diagnosis of torture, because this case was a chronic pain case. He had chronic pain, and also for treatment purposes, we tried to understand the nature of this chronic pain. And not only for using this as an evidence, but for treatment purposes also, it is very useful. It might be very useful. So this case had this digital infrared thermal imaging. I don't know whether there are any physiotherapists among us. Are there? Oh, yes. So you very well know, I think, about this for diagnostic purposes of myositis, fibromyalgia, and such cases. Yeah. And we know that we have a multidisciplinary teamwork always. And we have to work together, use our own methodologies, bring them in the big container so that we can have more evidence and also more helpful for our treatment purposes, as I have mentioned. Of course, imaging is very old, and I like this X-ray very much. It is from 1896, Kölliker's hand, and made by Röntgen himself. So it is very precious, I think. And we have used these imagings for a very long time, but the imaging technology has changed a lot. And in this sense, infrared coloring systems might be very useful and very cheap and non-invasive and not dangerous, because with X-rays we have limitations. However, with infrared imaging, we don't have such kind of limitations. It's very useful. And this, for example, this very easy camera, we use the Meditherm Med 200 thermal camera for the case. It is around 10,000 euros. So it is not a huge amount. Even for a department, for a center, it is a reachable instrument. Very easy, very quick. I know you mostly know about it, but it's the introduction, so I have to tell about the colors. It is good to see the colors because we can't see the heat. So the coldest part is blue and the warmest is yellow. And depending on these color changes, and particularly the asymmetrical distribution of the color changes, we can diagnose the different temperatures of the body. Of course, we use it in inflammatory diseases, circulatory diseases, skin diseases, musculoskeletal diseases, cancers, and trauma. So we have to differentiate again. It is also not too specific, but we can use all of the means together. Thanks to the skin, because it's a dynamic membrane, regulating the body temperature and having different temperatures all over the body. So we can detect it and differentiate. The asymmetry, for example, in this case, the knee joint has the ligament injury and different colors due to inflammation of the damaged knee. It is first used for the breast cancer, this digital infrared imaging, and afterwards used for chronic pain cases to just differentiate, to find the cause and just to decide on the treatment. Now, why do we just need new methods actually. Yes, in Turkey, there is a huge problem nowadays. You all know about the coup attempt. I just mixed the coup and the coup attempts. There are too many coups and coup attempts in Turkey. So we live with these kinds of atrocities, unfortunately. Of course, during 1980s, we had long detention periods and severe torture methods. For a while, the torture places changed, as I told, during demonstrations, on the streets. But then, with the coup attempt and the state of emergency, then the detention period is again 30 days. This means that there would be severe torture. And already we had several cases with severe torture. Some of them are too scared to come and get examination. But some of them can come, and for example, just 2 weeks ago, we had a case with rape and severe beatings and falanga torture after many years. So then we have to know about these cases again, and we have to just diagnose the cases. This is a 55-year-old male. Actually, he had been tortured in 1995, around 1995, 1993, 1996, and 1997, 3 times. And he had applied to Human Rights Foundation in 2015. After 20 years, around 20 years, he had chronic pain. In scintigraphy, in the bone scanning, we couldn't find any activities. MRI just displayed some injuries, particularly due to forced positions, but of course we cannot clearly say about it. He had several protrusions and dural compressions. What did we find with the digital infrared thermal imaging? There were thermal activities on his face, because he was severely beaten during that period, and he had pain on his face, for example. He described pain. While he tried to eat and chew, he had pain, and he had to use painkillers all the time. And this was found consistent with myositis for this case. He had this color change on his shoulders, and his right thoracic region had hypothermal imaging, a lighter color, bluish color, and it is considered as an organ insufficiency for this case. Also, the cardiologists evaluated the case, and the pneumatologists evaluated the case, and he had lung problems, and they evaluated that he had an insufficiency due to his health problems, health problems. He had thermal activities on his forearms, and these were also considered as post-traumatic inflammation and myositis. He had thermal activities on the rear part of his thorax, lumbar and sacral regions, and as you remember, on MRI also he had protrusions of his discs, so they were consistent with the also superficial tissue, the ligaments and the muscles. So they were all together, and they just supported the nerve root compression and the chronic pain again. He had, again, hyperactivity on lower limbs, but his feet soles were blue. They were cold. And this is due to circulatory dysfunction, again confirmed with ultrasound imaging. So there were different colors, and we tried to interpret all of them together with the physiotherapist, orthopedic surgeon, and we discussed about the chronic pain. We considered his medical history and the repetitive physical trauma for several times in between 1993, starting from 1993 to 1997. And he had severe trauma, severe beatings, phalange torture, suspension torture, Palestinian suspension torture, electrical torture, all types of severe blunt trauma actually, causing the fibrotic changes and at the end giving us an evidence with the thermal imaging. And this inadequate treatment during this detention period also caused this fibrosis. But we have to keep in mind that, yes, there is trauma, there is inflammatory process, but there is also post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So this symposium is dedicated to rehabilitation and mostly to psychological evaluation as well. And we have to consider about this chronic pain process and these fibrotic changes also closely related with PTSD cases. So it might also play a role in the etiology that we considered maybe we could also just help the case by therapy throughout physiotherapy sessions. Of course, this is recently a very well-used imaging because of its cost effectiveness and because of its non-invasive nature. So we considered maybe we can also have that type of methodology. This is the new co-attempt, and this is one of the co-attempters. He's a general, and this was a picture in the newspaper, so his face is open, everybody knows him. And the Minister of Justice, just explained that he hadn't been tortured, he doesn't have any injuries, but he has injuries. Even in the newspaper, in the picture, you can see the injuries. And there was a comic journal just describing it that untalented hairdresser has caused a cut on the ear. Extensive diet had caused the thinning of the face, etc. Marks of wearing sunglasses, hitting on the police car with his shoulder. So they would try, the states would try to explain torture in these ways, unfortunately. And we need evidences. Maybe we can use such kind of evidences for these purposes. It is only a case and the beginning. But as I say, Professor Luc, thanks to him, inspires us in this sense, and we can find new methods of diagnostic purposes. Thank you very much.